record this episode now. Hit me with those green eyes, baby, as the lights go down. Okay, what's up, guys? How's it going? Just singing a little Taylor Swift there. I've just been really into Sparks Fly lately. You know, Taylor Swift just has so many good songs that every now and then you hop on and you're listening to her and you just realize there was a great Taylor Swift song that you never got that into, and then it was time to get into it. So for me, that is Sparks Fly right now. So highly recommend go take a listen to the song Sparks Fly. Anyway, that's that for today. There's your music recommendation. I'll try not to choke on my coffee today. But what I'm going to talk about today is actually one of the freaking coolest metaphors that I have ever created. It helps people more than almost anything I talk about, and I realized that I need to talk about it more and more and more. So we're going to do that today. So I'm just going to double check here on my Facebook that the live is working okay. Looks like it is. Awesome. And then we're going to talk about how life is like this road trip and you're just doing it wrong. And sometimes I don't claim authority over you, right? So the reason I'm telling you you're doing this wrong is not because I'm better than you or because I know better than you, although I might know a little bit better. The reason I'm telling you you're doing it wrong is because we're all doing it wrong all the time. And so that's my favorite thing, is to be this person who comes in and I'm like, guys, we're all living life totally wrong. We're doing it just completely wrong. And we can just do it right and it'll be awesome and easy and so much more fun. And so that's the spirit and energy I'm bringing today. And so when I say you're doing it wrong, don't worry. It's really easy to make a change. It's really easy to choose to be different. And so I'm hoping to open your eyes so that you can see a different way to live today, which would be just awesome, right? How fun would that be? And so here's what I've been thinking, and I really solidified this metaphor the past year working on my own life. For the first 25 years, I was not living life according to the knowledge of this metaphor, and now I am, and it's great. And it's that life is like a road trip, right? Life really is like a road trip, and you're the car. And I want to let you know that this is how most people live life, right? Let's say you have a road trip, okay? And you're going from, I live in Cary, North Carolina. So let's say you're going from Raleigh, North Carolina to Seattle, Washington. I don't know, somewhere far. So it's this big intimidating road trip, right? Life is intimidating, you know? And so you got this cross-country trip planned, and you're like, okay, I got to get to Seattle, okay? And so you start, and you're driving, right? Now, if you were just driving, and you really wanted to get to Seattle, let's say you had to be there in, I don't know, a week. How long does it take to drive to Seattle? Maybe 30 hours, 40 hours? I have literally no clue. So I'm making that up, but I assume significantly less than a week. Would you drive all night and day and burn yourself out? Or would you just drive carefully, put your destination map, drive a little bit every day, and then eventually you get there? You know, if you're driving a car, then you just drive gently until you got there, right? And if you were in a hurry, you might drive a little faster, but you'd still take breaks to sleep. You'd still rest. You still wouldn't break your car down. And yet what's fascinating is when we live life, we don't take life the way we would take that road trip. We actually take life and burn ourselves out, okay? And so here's how we actually live life, right? We think we have a goal, okay? We think we have a goal. And the first thing we always tell ourselves is, I need to be there yesterday, right? We immediately tell ourselves not even that we have a goal and it's okay to take some time to get there, right? If I told you you had to drive from Raleigh, North Carolina to Seattle in 3 hours, then you'd be like, hey, I hate to break it to you, but that's not possible. You know, maybe give me a week, okay? But in real life, people put pressure on you all the time and they say, you should have already been doing this. You should have done that. You should be doing this, blah, blah, blah. And you listen to them and let that in your head, and it's the equivalent of saying, crap, I need to drive to Seattle, but I was supposed to be there yesterday, and I'm going to die if I don't get there in 3 hours. Now imagine if you had that perspective, and as warped and crazy as the world was, you thought you really had to be able to drive to Seattle in 3 hours. What would you do? You would lie to yourself and tell yourself you were going to just drive 1,000,000 miles an hour, and then you'd slam the gas, okay? But here's the problem. This is the thing that we're all doing in life, is we're slamming the gas, okay? We're working way too hard. We're burning ourselves out. But then here's the thing. Even if you're slamming the gas, right, there are obstacles in your way when you're driving. You can't just floor it and go 130 miles an hour all the way there. Even if your trip is mostly interstate, there will be traffic jams. There will be other times, okay? And so what you do in life and what you would do on this crazy road trip, though, is you'd be so tripped out, you'd forget to take your foot off the gas, okay? You'd forget to take your foot off the gas, and so you just also slam the brake. And this is kind of the fascinating part of the metaphor, all right? I know I've kind of gone a little scattershot here, but sometimes I just spit these things out. The fascinating part of a car is that if you slam the gas and slam the brakes, what wins? Do you guys know? The brakes win, okay? This is just science. It's just, even if you slam the gas, the brakes are going to stop the wheels and the car is going to stop moving. And so the way you are driving through your life right now, I can essentially guarantee, is that you're slamming the gas almost all the time because you have this fake sense of urgency in your head, like I got to get to Seattle in 3 hours, which is literally impossible. And then you're taking it and you're driving and you're slamming that gas. But then when an obstacle comes, you know you're going to die if you hit it. So you also slam the brakes, right? And so you're slamming the gas and slamming the brakes. And so after doing this enough, you have learned just through your childhood and then through adult life, and because everybody's doing it wrong for no reason at all, you've learned that you can never take your foot off the gas. And what that means is now you completely control yourself by modulating the brakes. You, instead of alternating gas and brakes, you're just always slammed on the gas, and you just gently, you're just using the brakes like this herky-jerky motion. Can you imagine a car doing that, right? Can you imagine a car that's driving down the interstate and you see it just going like and it's going like 120 miles an hour, but then there's a car only going 80 in the fast lane in front of it, and it can't get around, so then it slams the brakes, and you see all this smoke coming out, right? And then the car gets over, and then it goes, and then the next car is in the way, and it goes, right? Like, that's the way you're living your life, right? And so I want you to start to open your eyes to that it's not about the speed, right? It's about the fact that you are slammed on the gas because of an irrational pressure in your head, and so you're using the brakes to stop yourself without taking your foot off the gas. And that results in a spin out, and it destroys the car, it destroys your journey, you never get anywhere, and you break down. And so just think about how you're doing that in your own life, right? Think about how you're doing that. Like, for example, I just think of a few examples from my real life. When I was starting to market my services early this year, like January, I was marketing on LinkedIn, and I was just going out to people and saying, hey, do you need coaching? Like, what's going on? Like, how are you? But I was just going through, and I was just foot down on the gas, meaning I would connect with 400 people a day and send them all messages and stuff. But then I would get different messages and feedback from people, and people aren't really interested in cold messages. Like, welcome to life. Like, I have now gone from a LinkedIn spam bot to like not using LinkedIn because it's all LinkedIn spam bots. And so I learned that lesson myself because it seems like such a great idea. I was like, I'm going to go on LinkedIn. I can connect with 30,000 people, and I'm sure I'll find some clients there. That was such an abysmal failure, right? Because nobody wants random people to reach out to them through direct message and bother them. You're creating an instant negative experience. So I learned my lesson there, but it took me a month. But the point is, while I was learning this lesson and like slamming the gas on my social networking and being like connecting with everybody and trying to message them and trying to do this stuff, then anytime someone said feedback to me like, no, I'm not interested, or like, why are you messaging me, or what are your credentials? Then I would slam the brakes and be like, oh crap, like, what are my credentials? Like, oh my goodness. But at the same time, I'd be like messaging 30 other people, like, go, 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 go. But I'd also be like, crap, what are my credentials? Like, what can I do? Like, how can I do this? Like, oh no, like, am I good enough to be doing this? And I was gas and brakes, and it never got me anywhere but burnt out. And I remember specifically, like, to show you the symptoms of the burnout, I stopped doing all my chores that week. I would wake up at 7 a.m. and I was like, I have to get the clients. And I would get on LinkedIn and I would be in a robe and I would be messaging people like, come on, like, don't you want to do coaching? Like, blah, 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 blah. And then they would message me back, and most of them would be upset because people don't want direct messages from strangers on their social networking site. And so they message me like, what are your credentials? Like, what are you trying to do? Like, who are you even? I don't want to connect with you. And then I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, oh no, like, ah. And because I was so freaked out about it, I'd be in my robe with my hair undone, like no routine, like this, not showering. And then I just stopped doing all the dishes. And then I remember talking to my wife at her parents' house, and we were talking, and she was like, I wish Woody would do the dishes more. And I was like, but I'm busy, I'm working, like I'm trying to make some money here. Like, I have a full-time job, like blah, blah, blah. And so I was freaking out in my personal life and letting it tank because I was literally driving the gas 100%. And guess what came out of all that LinkedIn networking? Literally nothing but burnout. I got 0 clients. I did have a couple really cool connections, so some things came out of it in terms of friendships, but 0 sales, right? 0 money, 0 clients, a bunch of distractions. And then since I had built up a bunch of LinkedIn connections, I was now more popular on LinkedIn. So all these salespeople on LinkedIn suddenly started messaging me, and I would get like 6 spam messages a day from them. And I was like, I can't believe I was one of these people. But it's because everybody out there is slamming the gas, right? And it can be scary, if everyone on the interstate is slamming the gas and herking and jerking around, you just think that's the only way to drive. But the truth is, this is another driving principle, that if all the other drivers are driving crazy and unsafe, the best way to drive is also not drive like a crazy road racer, but to drive smoothly and slowly and keep appropriate margins everywhere. Now, when I'm on an actual road trip, if there are a bunch of crazy drivers, I don't think, oh, I got to show them. I'm going to go slam into their cars and I'm going to cut them off and I'm going to compete with them and I got to get there faster than them. I don't think that. I'm actually a very gentle driver. And so I think that's part of the way I can teach this metaphor is because I am a very gentle driver. I've just never been a fast driver. And so what I do right on the interstate is there'll be a clump of cars and they'll all be getting way too close to each other. It's like you're supposed to keep a 3-second margin, people. Like, what are you doing? Why would you endanger your life? This is so dangerous to drive too close to each other. People are doing it all the time, right? And so all these cars are driving on the interstate when I'm driving from North Carolina to Kentucky or wherever. And what I'll do is I will slow down and let all the cars pass me. And then I'll leave my 3-second margin, be like a few hundred meters behind or whatever. And then I'll drive behind this pack of cars. And so on the interstate, when I'm driving, I always let the fast pack of cars get in front of me. And then I, stay behind them at a reasonable pace. I match their pace. But it's just that, you'll see all those cars that are like, 20 feet apart from each other on the interstate going 70 miles an hour. And I'll be, 600 feet, 1,000 feet behind them. And then there'll be a bunch of cars way behind me. But I'll try to be kind of alone on the road. And, a same thing when I'm driving around town all the time. The other day, I saw this guy in the post office parking lot when I was shipping some prints. And he was texting and driving in the parking lot. And I was like, dude! But instead of like getting mad or trying to race him or anything, I just let him be. But I gave him some margin, right? I didn't get even close to this guy. And so that's another lesson in life is that when you're around a bunch of crazy drivers, what you got to do is give yourself the margin, You just got to give yourself the margin. So just like in real life, if you're driving, right, and all these drivers are going really fast and crazy like, you want to just gently sink behind. And it doesn't mean you have to let them win the race. It doesn't mean you have to, let them like beat up on you or take advantage of you. It just means you give yourself a little safe margin. And then you can still go at their speed, just at a margin away from them, not listening to them, not getting in their involvement. And while they're all going like this, you can just be safely behind. All right? And so just like think it's so important to realize that. And so anyway, like in my personal life, I did all that burnout and then I wasn't doing the dishes, then I was stressed at home, and now I have the same lifestyle, same routine, same everything as back then. But in the past 6 months, since I've adjusted my expectations and my ability to drive, I am now taking the unrealistic expectations out of the back of my head. Like I have to earn so much so fast. Guys, at the time of making this video, my coaching business earns negative $300 to $400 a month, meaning I don't earn because I do everything for free, and I spend $300 to $400 a month on my own coaching and on my own infrastructure. And of course, we make a couple thousand a month from the art business, so I'm earning, but not that much, right? Like barely enough to live on, but Preetha's salary is carrying us. And the reason I'm comfortable with this is because just like on the beginning of a road trip, right? You just got to get settled in, and you want to get going, and you want to be gentle and be planning out your destination, and you don't want to be slamming the gas. And so now instead of pretending to try and earn fake money that's not real through LinkedIn marketing that makes people upset, I'm now here creating this free content schedule that's so wonderful and exciting and amazing. And sure, if my stuff takes time to catch on, that doesn't bother me, right? What bothers me is that so many people are in need of help and I want to help them. And so I'm just going to gently move that direction, right? And so now I'm out of the hypnosis of all the crazy drivers and I'm doing my own thing. But here's the thing. Okay, let me take a drink of coffee and then I'm going to tell you the thing and like why this is more nuanced even than I've told you. Oh, that's so nice. Here's why this is nuanced, right? This is always going to happen, okay? I may tell you 1,000 different things, but I hope you're paying attention that it's always the same format. And the same format is, I tell you what's wrong with the world, and I'm like, this makes no sense. And then I tell you, it's happening because of social pressure and groupthink, okay? So this is now the second part of the parable, where I tell you, all of that's just happening because of groupthink, because of common people, like everybody is doing it, okay? So now think about your driving again, right? Do you like it when people criticize your driving? Do you let people tell you how to drive? Like that's why backseat driving is such a big deal. Everybody gets so mad at people when they're backseat drivers. And part of the reason is because, everybody has an ego and they don't want to be told they're a bad driver. But there's more than that, right? If you're driving a car, you are hurtling down a road, and if you crash, you could die. And so it's very important you maintain your what? Focus, okay? Is the word focus ringing some bells, kind of with consciousness up here in layer 4 of our 4 tiers of existence, right? Physical, mental, emotional consciousness. When you are driving, it is not just a physical activity, it is not just a mental activity, and it's not just about your emotions getting triggered. You must apply your consciousness to the road in order to be aware of your surroundings. And so driving inherently is a great way to use a metaphor for our consciousness, okay? And when you're driving, okay, you are focused on the road. And so it doesn't matter if you have some slight flaws as a driver, okay? We know a couple things are true. First of all, you can't have a person in the back seat telling you how to drive because you have to focus on doing your best, even if it's not perfect. Second of all, if people told you not to drive because you're a bad driver or not to drive because they don't like your driving or whatever, then you have to say, right, like, well, you can get a different ride, but I have to get to this place, so I've got to drive, okay? Like in the example, if you had to go from Raleigh to Seattle because you had family in Seattle that was sick and you had to go see them, right? Then you would have to drive. It doesn't matter how good you are of a driver, right? If you don't have another means of transportation, you got to drive yourself. And if somebody else has criticism of that, they got to find another way to go. Or if they're not capable of driving and they depend on you, they have to come with you. They don't have a choice. It's the best you can do. And so these two things, right, are obviously self-evident in driving, but not in life. The two things being, number one, you have to get there, okay? There's no option. If you have a life or death scenario or somewhere where you really have to be for work or family or something, you have to drive there. It doesn't matter if you're the worst driver in the world, right? If there's no other way to get there, you've got to drive. Second thing is that if someone was backseat driving you, that's never helpful. It's never helpful for someone to criticize you, short of a life-threatening experience where another car is swerving in front of you and the person yells, "Watch out!" Aside from that, there's really no reason to criticize someone's driving, right? Short of making sure they don't check their phone, right, or something like that. But if it's just a preference of like, I wish you would drive a little slower, or I wish you would drive a little faster, or I wish you would pass this car, you know? If you're the driver, you never listen to that, okay? Like my wife, she likes to drive right behind semi-trucks, and that blows my mind. I'm like, why would you drive right behind a semi-truck? You can't see anything. But sometimes on the interstate, she just likes to sit behind a semi-truck and drive behind it. And the truth is, that's very safe for her. It's her strategy. It keeps her calm. She feels good. She's smooth. And so I don't backseat drive her when she's behind a semi-truck, because when I get behind a semi-truck, I always, like, I'm a slow driver, but when I get behind a semi, I, like, go really fast and pass it and then get in front of it, because I just get stressed out being behind it. But that's just a matter of preference. Now, if a semi-truck is about to crash into her, I would yell. But short of that, I wouldn't backseat drive her because I trust her, and she's also a good driver, okay? But now in life, you're letting hundreds, thousands, infinite number of people backseat your driving. That's why you're driving like a herky-jerky maniac. Like, imagine that you're on a road trip, but now you decide to treat that road trip like you treat the rest of your personal life. And so you pack 7 people in your SUV, and you're driving, and all 7 of them, your parents, your friends, your siblings, your teachers, you know, your spouse, they're all yelling at you, do this, do that, do this, do that. And you think that somehow it makes sense for you to try and listen to them and please them all. So you're switching lanes, and then maybe you have me and my wife in the car, and so my wife is like, get behind that semi, get behind that semi, that's safe. And so you get behind the semi, and then I'm on the next row, and I'm like, no, don't get behind this, get around this, speed up, go around it. And so you're on the gas, and then you're on the brakes, and then you move around. Like, do you know how crazy that road trip would be with just 6 people? But let's take it a little farther, right? Now imagine that, because in the real world we can get digital people to talk to us from anywhere. So imagine you have a radio on, and the radio is trying to transmit other people telling you how to drive. And so there are people who aren't even in the car with you, and they're like, hey, I'm watching you on satellite. You need to be going faster. I'm watching you on satellite. Watch out for this. I'm watching you on satellite. Don't mess that up. And maybe they're even giving you good information, but now you got 12 people talking to you, okay? And then maybe there's a video screen, you know, in the back of the car, and the people behind you are watching the news, right? And they're like, oh my God, the news said that this is happening, so we gotta go this way. Oh, but the other news said this was happening, so you gotta go that way, right? And then they're all like, ah! And then all your passengers start panicking for no reason at all, because they're all freaking out because they're watching these news screens and they're listening to their own audio that tells them the world is collapsing. And then suddenly you're all panicking, and then what happens? You crash the car and all of you die. Okay? Hate to be morbid at the end of it, but that would be the result of that road trip. This is actually how you live your personal life right now. This is how I was living my personal life for 25 years. I didn't just let family, friends, and other people tell me how to live. I let the TV tell me how to live. I let radio tell me how to live, right? I let society tell me how to live. The news, like all this stuff. But the point is not whether that criticism was valid. Every single person who gave you driving advice during that scenario where you crashed, burned, and all died in a horrible wreck, every single person had good intentions and gave you good information. It's very possible that when Preetha told you to get behind a semi-truck, that was good advice for her. It's possible when I told you never stick behind a semi-truck, that was good advice for me. It's possible that when the news told you crazy things were happening on the road, that was true. It's possible that when the radio told you to go a different way or try a different way of driving, that was actually a better method. All these things are possibly true and good. But did they have a positive effect on your outcome of getting where you need to go? No! You didn't get there and you died, okay? And so I want to let you know that if you keep listening to other people tell you how to live your personal life, you will not get there and you will die, okay? And it may not be a physical immediate death, but it might be. It might be that you need to take time and space for your own physical health, and you're so busy trying to please everybody that you are literally killing yourself in terms of not eating healthy, in terms of bad health habits or smoking or whatever it is, right? And isn't that wild? Isn't that a little bit crazy? That's nuts. And so what's the point? What's the key insight we have to have here? There are a couple key insights, right? The main things are, number one, it's a force of habit. So everybody grows up driving their life like this crazy person who's trying to please and listen to everybody. Second of all, everyone has good intentions. There's no explicit harm trying to be done. It can happen from the good people in your life. Third of all, right, is that this does not work because the act of directing your consciousness requires your focus to be unified, okay? When you are driving a car, this is self-evident. Okay? You can't be listening to 6 different people tell you how to drive, even if they're all better drivers than you. Because one person listening to 6 other people trying to drive one car is going to crash, right? Just as if 6 people had 6 different steering wheels, you know? Imagine it that way. Imagine you're like, hey, I'm going to go on this road trip, and I want the best drivers in the world to drive me. So I'm going to hook up 6 steering wheels to my car. Have you ever seen the driver's ed cars where they have a steering wheel for the instructor as well? I've seen that in like a movie. I don't know if that's real, but I've seen that. But imagine you have your SUV, and this is another good way to put it. You have 6 steering wheels in the SUV, and you're like, hey, friends and family, since you guys are all better drivers than me, and you all have unique talents, I'm going to let you all control my road trip. So all 6 of us will have the steering wheel and a gas pedal and a brake pedal. How long do you think you could stay alive like that if all 6 of those genuinely put inputs to the car, right? Some smart person would probably slam the brakes and override all the gas, and you might survive. But if, let's say it didn't work that way, right, and the gas could override the brakes, then you would crash and die within a minute, right? 6 people could not drive one car. And so the point of your life is that your life is not 6 cars. Your life is 1 car. And you are the driver of that car, and you have no ability to give it to somebody else. So it doesn't matter if you think you suck at everything. It doesn't matter if you think you're bad. It doesn't matter if you think you're letting people down. It doesn't matter if you think you're not earning enough money. It doesn't matter if you think you're being bad in your relationships. It doesn't matter. Because it doesn't matter what everybody else is saying, because your only job is to use your focus the best you can to keep your concentration and help yourself get to the destination. And so guys, that's why it's so self-evident that you can't let other people tell you how to live your life. And that's another just way of explaining why I'm so low on constructive criticism, right? I think constructive criticism can always be replaced by better standards, okay? And so if you want to get help from other people, don't go to people for specific advice on what to do. Go to people who have better standards of practice than you and incorporate them. Because now, guess what, right? Now let's say, instead of taking random advice from people and freaking out, you get those 6 people who are better drivers than you in your car, but you take their best standards. Well, let's say person 1 has a standard of never check your phone while driving. And so you get in the car with them and they're like, hey, I'm getting in this car with you, but my only standard is you can never check your phone while driving. That's just how I drive, and that's the way you have to be if you're driving with me. I'm not going to tell you how to drive. I'm not going to do anything else. I will give you no specific criticisms, except I'm taking your phone right now and you cannot check it while driving. You'd say, oh, great standard. That doesn't affect my focus. In fact, it helps. Second person says, always keep your eyes on the road. No looking back at us. And you're like, okay, great. That's a great standard. Third person says, keep your hands here and here. Or I don't keep up with driving techniques, so I don't know where the correct place is. Like if 8 and 2 is the wrong place now, I know people have different opinions on where to keep your hands. But, somebody says, here's the standard for where to keep your hands. You're like, great. Next person says, here's the standard on how often to get gas. We're going to get gas every hour and a half. And you're like, okay, great. And then everybody in the car says, are the standards set? And you as the driver say, now that you guys have given me your standards and I've agreed to them, this is the boundary of the relationship. You will not criticize my driving, and unless a car is swerving in to kill me or something very dangerous is happening that you can tell I'm not seeing, you will not criticize or give me other advice on driving, okay? And the people all say, okay. Now that's a functional road trip. That is everyone synergizing. That is life being better. And so that's how life is meant to be. The reason we're here meant to help each other is not to criticize individual instances. That never helps. The reason we're meant to be here with each other is so that we can give each other higher standards. And so if you want help from me, my help to you is not specific advice on your life. I have no specific advice for your business. I may be the only life coach who has no advice on your business, no advice on your life, no advice on what actions you should take. None. My advice is on your standards, okay? And so if you want to just set that first standard in place, just start listening to these messages every morning. Start plugging into my stuff. Because if you have a standard of listening to other positive people, then that's going to really help get this all into place. So guys, I hope this was helpful. I think this is just staggeringly insightful, right? That you are living your life like a crazy person, and you would never let yourself drive like that. And it's all because your focus, your consciousness must be united. So you can't try and see it a bunch of other people's ways. You can only try and incorporate their standards and their requests into your standards with firm boundaries, okay? So take away criticisms, take away one-offs, increase standards combined with boundaries. And standards combined with boundaries will give you a happy, amazing life. Guys, hope you had fun with this parable. I had a blast with it, and so I'm excited for the next section, which is going to be reflection time. We'll move right on to that.